Welcome to the Chronically Will Podcast, where we have real conversations with community that need to be heard. On today's episode, I give to you a new series titled A Few Minutes with Will. In this series, I share information with our community that everyone needs to hear. Some of these topics will be 5 minutes, others 10, or even 20. Everyone that lives with type 1 diabetes cares for someone with type 1 diabetes, loves someone with type 1 diabetes, works with someone with type 1 diabetes, or just wants to know anything about type 1 diabetes, needs to tap into this series. Thank you to Scott Benner, host of the Juicebox podcast, for episodes 371 and the remastered episode 1019. Diabetes Pro Tip Explaining Type 1 Diabetes, for sparking the flame and changing the culture that is living with and managing type 1 diabetes. I hope you enjoy this. Today's topic is called Cost of Insulin. At 8 o'clock this morning, I was at a local bagel shop with my 10-year-old getting his favorite croissants. He said to me as we stood in line, "Did you know there's something that diabetics need that costs as little as 83 cents to make, but some are being charged $1,000 for it?" I said, "You know what that is, right? Right, Joel?" And he goes, "Insulin?" I said, "Yes, insulin." For those that don't know, insulin is a naturally occurring hormone your pancreas makes that's essential for allowing your body to use sugar or glucose for energy. If your pancreas does not make insulin or your body doesn't use it properly, it leads to high blood sugar levels or hyperglycemia. This results in many diabetes complications. Diabetes complications also include heart disease, stroke, kidney disease, nerve damage, eye damage, digestion issues and problems, even erectile dysfunction. And with all of these physical ailments comes mental and emotional health conditions and concerns as well. Those of us living with type 1 diabetes, our body makes little to no insulin. For many, absolutely none. It is not at our own fault, nor our parents, community, nothing, that we have type 1 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. You're probably like, what? Autoimmune. And what does that mean? Yes, auto meaning continuously or automatically happens. Immune or immune system meaning a set of organs or network of organs, white blood cells, protein, different chemicals that work together to protect you from invaders. Things such as viruses, bacteria, germs, infections. The immune system recognizes attacks on your body and defends itself. This includes cells like cancer. When your immune system feels an onslaught or attack from antigens, it does its best to defend itself against this attack. Part of this response or defense is the buildup of antibodies that will protect against attacks on our own immune system. Sometimes we have immune responses without disease or even infection. This leads to things like allergies, asthma, and autoimmune diseases. People with autoimmune diseases, literally, our bodies have and continue to attack healthy cells by mistake. Where the signal comes from or how it was crossed, I have no clue. But that's the truth of it. It attacks healthy cells. So you can be the strongest, your strongest, most fit, most athletic, most mentally sound and physically sound person on earth. But if there's an attack on your body, there may be an autoimmune response to protect it. And also at the same time, there may be a response by mistake. Type 1 diabetes, which is often referred to here in the US as T1D or abroad as DM1, is an organ-specific autoimmune disease caused by the autoimmune response against pancreatic beta cells. It directly affects the insulin-producing pancreatic beta cells and leads to a chronic, sudden, and ongoing lingering deficiency of insulin in people. I don't want to go or get too far ahead with that portion of the scientific facts, but just know that just a little over 100 years ago, for many, or no, not even many, for anyone diagnosed, it was a near instant fatal response. Everyone died with type 1 diabetes. Everyone died with type 1 diabetes. There was zero, absolutely zero, no exception to this rule. In 1921, Dr. Frederick Banning, along with Charles Best, successfully isolated the hormone insulin for the first time. And in 1922, it was first successfully used to treat people with type 1 diabetes. Its first being a kid who was 14 years old, Leonard Thompson. Insulin today, many have described it as arguably the greatest medical miracle of all time. I know that my life, now that I'm here today after 21 years of living with type 1 diabetes, it is a miracle. Because in 1922, when these scientists entered a ward of dying children in Toronto that were all in DKA, that's diabetic ketoacidosis, and all comatose. Many had been comatose for weeks, months, and they gave these kids insulin for the first time. By the time they got to the last kid in that ward, the first one had already woken up. A pure miracle. So just think about it. Think about that. People who don't know much about insulin, about type 1 diabetes, who say things such as, you're taking that insulin, that's going to kill you. You shouldn't be taking that man-made insulin. You should live a certain lifestyle or diet. Just know, people without diabetes, your body naturally makes the hormone insulin, and it's used to break down the sugars, the glucose, the carbohydrates, and produce energy. People with type 1 diabetes, we have to take in this insulin hormone to combat high glucose levels and the complications that will persist after. On January 23rd, 1923, a little over 100 years ago, that scientist team was awarded the U.S. patents on insulin and the method used to produce it. Today, insulin costs as little as 83 cents to produce a vial, but roughly upwards of $1,000. And more so for people living with insulin dependence, we're paying closer to that $1,000 than we are that 83 cents. And for someone in need of it to question this, these scientists, just listen, they sold that patent for $1. Because, as Dr. Banning said, and I'm going to quote this, insulin does not belong to me. It belongs to the world. Dr. Banning, he wanted everyone who needed it to have access to it. Today, everyone who needs it still do not have access to it. although it is readily available and easy to produce everywhere around the world, the cost of insulin is insurmountable. People give up shelter for insulin. And at the same time, people give up insulin for shelter. It's a lose-lose situation. We cannot go days without insulin. We do not take insulin just once a day. We must give insulin throughout the entirety of the day. We must give it for every hormonal effect that you can imagine. Our glucose levels or blood sugar rise without us doing anything. While we're asleep, it rises. The change in temperature alters our blood sugar. Adrenaline for females' menstrual cycles. Just stress in general. So many things affect our blood sugar beyond just food and carbohydrates and sugar. Exercise affects our blood sugar. We can be the most physically fit and sound person again. Exercise all day, every day. That is not an option for a person living with type 1 diabetes. Because for some, it makes their blood sugar go up, and for many other, it makes their blood sugar go down, which can lead to other complications, such as seizures and death. So many things affect our blood sugar. And as people living with type 1 diabetes or any insulin dependence, yes, we can have sugar, but we need insulin to break down that sugar into energy, or all of that glucose will store in our cells and we will fall into DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis, where our blood turns into an acid and we start having infirmities complications. Insulin therapy is the only thing that keeps our blood sugar in a target range. It helps prevent serious complications. And if you have type 1 diabetes, you need insulin to stay alive. It replaces the insulin that our bodies don't make. And remember that people who don't have insulin dependence, again, your body naturally makes insulin. The price for a vial of insulin today ranges from $50 to over $1,000. And many of us need multiple vials per month. It's all based off of your insurance, your pharmacy, how the scripts are written, your ability to get insurance. Just think, with all of the complications that can arise, how hard will it be for someone living with type 1 diabetes to stay with a job for a certain amount of time if you do have complications? And if you do have these complications, how are you going to get access to the money to get insulin? How can someone pay $1,000 a month for insulin and afford $1,000 a month just for shelter? We have this fight with ourselves, with doctors, with pharmaceutical companies, with insulin manufacturers on a day-to-day, second-by-second struggle because why isn't insulin free to us? Ask that question. When you have people that don't have diabetes, insulin is free to them because it's naturally running throughout their body. We all breathe air. All of our bodies flow with blood. That's all free. Why are we paying for insulin? I asked a question in my T1D People of Color group today. I shared insight. I asked them to share insight on the cost of living and insulin, and these are some of the responses I received. It's unreal for sure. I treat insulin vials like a newborn baby. Every time I hold one in my hands, like it's that deep. One of my biggest fears is breaking a vial. The insurance company dictating which insulin you can use. It's heartbreaking to know how much how much some people have to pay to get their insulin to live. That's why as long as I'm able to, I will always keep a stockpile and give to people in need. Another writes, it took me having to reach out to my job because insurance was only allowing me one vial at a time. It was horrible. I had several close calls and urgent care visits to get emergency scripts. I'm now using script sourcing and I get my insulin free from Canada. Another response, healthcare and insurance are two of the biggest hustles of all time. Insurance won't cover a $5,000 insulin pump, but will pay $40,000 when I'm in ICU for DKA. Another response, getting a 90-day supply is so relieving, but then it dawns on me that I'll have to do it all over again. The insurance company, pharmacy, endocrinologist, they all benefit at our expense. It's a sad reality. We live it each day. Another, insurances are so different. My insurance has always paid for my pumps, CGMs, and supplies 100%. Another, I look forward to maxing out my out-of-pocket max around April each year. Another, I usually always change jobs, which means changing insurance. So I'm always going through hurdles with insulin calls and pump supplies being covered. It's a pain in the... Another writes, I had to switch from Omnipod because my insurance wouldn't cover it anymore. Another, the ACA has its own problems. However, as a contractor, it keeps me from having to change insurance policies every year. Another, that's why these groups are needed, because we can help each other. I've started a little network with other diabetics where I live. If they need something, I usually have it, or I can find someone local who does. So far with donations I've received from my nonprofit, I've been using supplies, or I've been buying supplies at the non-prescription price. And I'm in tears every time I buy it. Another reply, yes, insurances are different. When you pay attention to the inner workings of a policy, it's not the insurance companies all of the time, it's what pharmaceutical companies will accept as payment. Most insurance companies will allow you to change or stay on certain medications or pumps or with the proper prior authorization. For prior authorization, you have to be a well-versed doctor that knows how to say and what not to say, or knows what to say and what not to say. And it depends on the company as well. Doctors, not all, have the same frustrations that we have, except for many of them who don't have type 1 diabetes. I hate the limitations in cost. Can only have a 30-day supply at a time. Again, it depends on the company. I used to have 90 days now and I have 30 days. The 30 days usually starts from the time you pick up the script and not from when it is written. So if you get 30 days of Dexcom supplies and wait 5 days later from when the refill is filled, you are now 5 days late for the next refill. Some insurance companies give a grace period and allow you to refill up to a week early. If you fill a week early for a while, eventually there will be an overlap. Another response. That's how I've created a little stockpile. I didn't know. I have refills waiting, thinking I'm good. And for insulin, it also depends on the cost. You can communicate with your doctor to write a script for a larger daily dose usage so that you have at least 1 or 2 extra vials always available. And if you got sensors from a medical supply company and have to pay a copay, check the cost of getting them from CVS. 3 of my coworkers get them from a supply company and they pay $40 copay for their CGM supplies. I get mine free from CVS and we have the same exact insurance. Another response. My doctor has always looked out. For years, I have about 30 extra bottles of Humalog on me. I communicated this, but the doctor office staff I go to is highly incompetent. In short, living with diabetes, living with insulin dependence, and having to equally fight the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies, the endocrinologists, all of these things. And at the same time, you have to worry about how are you going to provide for yourself. If you have a family, your household, it's too much. Why are we having to pay to live? Answer that question. Seriously, why are we paying to live when everyone else has insulin that runs throughout their body, that responds and reacts to the different hormonal fluctuations that occur? Why are we having to pay to live? Again, some are truly paying to die. We all need the insulin hormone to live. Thank you for tuning in to the Chronically Will Podcast, where we have real conversations with communities that need to be heard.